We thought she was just spending more time in her room. We didn't know she was hiding a whole human being. The night Sarah vanished, the world outside my window was a symphony of crickets and distant sirens, but inside my room, it was just the frantic pulse of my own heart, a drumbeat against the silence. Sarah, my best friend, my other half, was curled on my floor, a crumpled heap of designer clothes and silent sobs. Her parents had reported her missing a week ago. Missing, as in gone, as in the entire city was plastered with her face on flyers, her name flashing across news channels. And she was here, in my room. My name is Nia. I was 16, and Sarah was my best friend. We were an unlikely pair, like two puzzle pieces from different boxes that somehow fit perfectly. She was all blonde hair and privilege, living in a mansion on the other side of town, where manicured lawns stretched for acres and silence was a luxury. I lived in the heart of our neighborhood, in a house that hummed with life, the smell of Mama's cooking, the distant rumble of Daddy's laughter, the constant chatter of my older sister, Maya, and my two younger brothers, Jamal and Leo. Our house was small, but it was vibrant, filled with a warmth that Sarah, despite her wealth, often said she envied. Sarah's parents were intense. Strict was an understatement. They micromanaged her life, from her grades to her friendships, her clothes to her future. They wanted her to be perfect, a polished extension of their own flawless image. And Sarah, for all her outward confidence, was crumbling under the pressure. She'd always talked about running away, about escaping the gilded cage. I'd always laughed it off, told her it was just teenage angst. Until it wasn't. She'd called me from a payphone at the bus station, her voice thin and reedy, barely audible over the static. "Mia, I did it. I can't go back. Please, can I just stay with you for a night? Just one night until I figure things out?" My stomach had dropped. My mind raced. Hide Sarah? The missing girl? The daughter of the prominent Mr. and Mrs. Albright? It was insane. It was dangerous. My parents, strict in their own way about rules and honesty, would kill me. But then I thought of Sarah, alone, terrified, out there, in the city. I thought of the desperation in her voice, and my loyalty, a fierce, unwavering thing, kicked in. "Where are you?" I'd whispered, my voice barely a breath. "Stay put. I'll be there." That night, under the cover of darkness, I'd snuck her into our house. It was surprisingly easy. My parents were already asleep. Maya was engrossed in a late-night study session in her room, and the boys were dead to the world. I'd led Sarah through the back door, up the creaky stairs, and into my room, where she collapsed on the floor, shaking. The first night was a blur of whispered conversations, shared snacks, and the terrifying realization of what I had done. One night turned into two into three, and then a week, then 2 weeks. Sarah was still here. My room became our secret world. I'd rigged up a makeshift bed for her in my closet, hidden behind a curtain of clothes. It was cramped, hot, and smelled faintly of mothballs. But Sarah didn't complain. She was just grateful to be safe, to be unseen. We developed a routine, a silent choreography of deception. When my parents were home, Sarah would stay absolutely still. Not a peep, not a rustle. When they left for work or when Maya took the boys out, she'd emerge, stretching her limbs, blinking in the dim light of my room. Feeding her was the hardest part. I'd sneak extra portions from dinner, hiding them under napkins, pretending I was still hungry later. I'd raid the pantry for snacks, always careful to replace them so my mom wouldn't notice the dwindling supplies. My allowance, usually spent on clothes or movies, now went towards buying her favorite granola bars or a new book to keep her occupied. The constant fear was a gnawing ache in my stomach. Every creak of the floorboards, every unexpected knock on the door, sent a jolt of panic through me. I became a master of deflection, of casual lies, of feigning ignorance when my mom mentioned the missing posters for Sarah Albright. "Poor girl," Mama would sigh, shaking her head as she ironed Daddy's work shirts. Her parents must be beside themselves. I'd just nod, my heart hammering against my ribs, a silent scream trapped in my throat. The guilt was a heavy blanket, suffocating me, but beneath it a fierce protectiveness burned. Sarah was my friend. She was scared, and I believed her when she said her parents were making her life a misery. I couldn't just turn her out. Not when she had nowhere else to go. My family, oblivious to the secret guest in our home, continued their lives. Daddy, a mechanic with hands that could fix anything and a laugh that could fill a room, would come home tired but always with a smile for us. Mama, a force of nature who juggled a full-time job, our household and community volunteering, was the heart of our home, her wisdom a quiet anchor. Maya, my older sister, was 18, a year older than me, and already mapping out her future with meticulous precision. She was smart, responsible, and had an uncanny knack for noticing things. Nothing got past Maya, and that was my biggest fear. She started noticing the little things first. A half-eaten sandwich in my room when I swore I wasn't hungry. The faint scent of a perfume that wasn't mine. The way I'd jump whenever she knocked on my door. "You're acting weird, Nia," she'd say, narrowing her eyes. "What's going on with you?" "Nothing." "Nothing." I'd snap, too quickly, too defensively. "Just stress from school." She'd hum, unconvinced, but let it go. For a while, the weeks stretched into a month. Sarah was getting restless, too. The novelty of hiding had worn off, replaced by boredom and a desperate longing for fresh air, for sunlight. She'd whisper about wanting to call her parents, then immediately retract it. Remembering the reason she ran, she was a ghost in my own life, and the strain was starting to show on both of us. One Saturday morning, my parents had gone out for groceries, taking Jamal and Leo with them. Maya was supposed to be at the library, studying for a big exam. It was the perfect window. "Just for a few minutes, Sarah," I whispered, pulling back the curtain to my closet. "We can sit by the window, get some sun." Sarah's face lit up. She crawled out, stretching her cramped limbs, her eyes blinking against the sudden brightness. We sat on my window seat, talking in hushed tones, enjoying the rare luxury of open space. We talked about school, about her future, about the ridiculousness of her parents. For a moment it felt normal, like old times. Then I heard it, the faint creak of the front door. My heart leaped into my throat. "Maya," I hissed, grabbing Sarah's arm. "She's home. Get back in the closet now." Sarah scrambled, but she was too slow. The door to my room swung open. Maya stood there, a stack of library books in her arms, her eyes wide, unblinking. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She just stared, first at Sarah, then at me, then back at Sarah, her face a mask of shock, disbelief, and then a dawning, furious betrayal. "Sarah?" She whispered, the name a question, a gasp. "Sarah Albright? What? What are you doing here?" Sarah froze, caught like a deer in headlights. I jumped up, trying to block Maya's view, trying to explain, to plead. "Maya, please. Just listen. It's not what you think." But Maya wasn't listening. Her eyes were blazing. She dropped her books with a thud that echoed like a gunshot in the sudden silence. "Not what I think?" she shrieked, her voice rising, cracking with anger. "Nia, she's been missing for weeks. Her face is on every news channel. And you've been hiding her? In our house? Are you insane?" Her voice was getting louder, shriller. I could feel the walls of my secret world crumbling around me. "She ran away, Maya. Her parents are awful. She had nowhere to go." I pleaded, my own voice rising in desperation. "You could have told Mama and Daddy. You could have called the police. Do you know what this looks like? Do you know what this means for us?" Maya was practically screaming now, her face contorted with fear and rage. "This is kidnapping, Nia. They'll think we kidnapped her." The word hung in the air, cold and terrifying. Kidnapping. "No, she came here on her own. She asked me." I cried, tears stinging my eyes. But Maya was already turning, storming out of my room, her footsteps thundering down the stairs. "Mama, Daddy, you won't believe what Nia's done." I heard the front door open, heard my parents' voices. Then Maya's frantic, breathless explanation. The shouting started almost immediately. My mother's voice, usually so calm, was sharp with disbelief. My father's booming laugh was replaced by a guttural roar of anger. "Nia, get down here now." Daddy's voice thundered, shaking the very foundations of the house. "Sarah, pale and trembling, grabbed my arm. "Nia, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen." "It's okay," I whispered, though my voice was shaking. "Just stay calm. I'll explain everything." I walked downstairs, my legs feeling like lead. My parents stood in the living room, their faces etched with a mixture of fury and profound disappointment. Maya stood beside them, arms crossed, eyes narrowed, a silent accusation. "Nia," Mama began, her voice dangerously quiet. "Is it true? Is Sarah Albright in our house?" I nodded, unable to speak. "For how long?" Daddy demanded, his face a mask of thunder. "A month," I whispered, barely audible. Mama gasped, pressing a hand to her mouth. Daddy ran a hand over his bald head, his eyes closing for a moment, as if trying to ward off a nightmare. "A month, Nia?" Mama cried, her voice rising. "A month? Do you know what kind of trouble you've put us in? Do you know what people will think?" She was scared, Mama. She had nowhere to go. Her parents are so strict they practically imprison her. I burst out, trying to explain, to justify. "That's not your concern, Nia," Daddy roared, his voice echoing through the house. "Our concern is our family, our reputation, what we stand for. We don't hide missing children. We don't break the law." The argument escalated quickly. My parents, usually so composed, were beside themselves. They shouted. I shouted back, defending Sarah, defending my loyalty, trying to make them understand the desperation that had driven my actions. Maya chimed in, listing all the ways I had endangered our family, all the lies I had told. "This is kidnapping, Mama. They'll say we kidnapped her." Maya repeated, her voice frantic. "She came willingly." I screamed, tears streaming down my face. "She begged me." The shouting was loud, raw, filled with fear and anger. It spilled out of our open windows, across the small front yard, and into the quiet afternoon. Our neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, a sweet but notoriously nosy elderly woman, was tending her roses next door. She paused, her head cocked, listening to the cacophony erupting from our usually peaceful home. She'd seen the missing posters for Sarah Albright. She knew our family, knew us to be good, honest people. But the shouting, the word kidnapping, it must have sounded alarming. I didn't see her call, but I felt it, that cold, creeping dread that settled in my bones. It wasn't long after that the sirens started, faint at first, then growing louder, closer. My heart leaped into my throat. My parents froze, their argument dying on their lips. Maya's eyes widened in terror. 2 patrol cars pulled up to our curb, their blue and red lights flashing, painting our house in an eerie, pulsing glow. 2 officers emerged, their faces grim, their hands resting on their holsters. "Police, open up." A voice boomed from the porch. Daddy, his face pale, slowly walked to the door and opened it. "Mr. Taylor?" The officer, a tall, imposing white man, asked, his eyes sweeping over our faces. "We received a call about a disturbance and a possible kidnapping." My mother gasped, a small, choked sound. "Kidnapping?" Daddy repeated, his voice laced with disbelief. "There's no kidnapping here, officer. Just a family argument. We understand there's a missing girl, Sarah Albright, in this residence." The officer pressed, his gaze piercing. My parents exchanged a terrified look. There was no hiding it now. She's upstairs," I whispered, my voice barely a thread. The officers didn't hesitate. They pushed past Daddy, their eyes scanning the living room, then the stairs. They moved with a practiced efficiency that chilled me to the bone. "Sarah, come down here now," I called out, my voice trembling. Sarah slowly descended the stairs, her face ashen, her eyes wide with fear. The moment the officers saw her, their expressions hardened. Recognition flashed in their eyes. This was the missing girl. "Sarah Albright?" the lead officer asked, his voice now devoid of any pretense of politeness. Sarah nodded, her chin trembling. "You're reported missing. Are you here against your will?" "No," Sarah cried, her voice cracking. "No, I ran away. I came here on my own. Nia didn't kidnap me." But the officers weren't listening. Their eyes were already on us, my black family. The narrative was already set in their minds. A missing white girl found in the home of a black family. It was a story they had heard before, a stereotype they were quick to believe. "Ma'am, sir?" "We're going to have to take you all down to the station for questioning," the officer stated, his voice flat, authoritative. "On suspicion of kidnapping." "Suspicion of what?" Mama cried, her voice rising in disbelief. "My daughter didn't kidnap anyone. She's our guest. She ran away from home. We'll sort that out at the station," the officer said, already pulling out handcuffs. The cold metal clicked around Daddy's wrists first, then Mama's, then Maya's, and finally mine. The humiliation was a burning fire in my cheeks. My parents, pillars of our community, hard-working, honest, always teaching us right from wrong, now handcuffed, treated like common criminals in our own home. Jamal and Leo, who had been hiding behind the couch, emerged, their eyes wide with terror, tears streaming down their faces. "Mama, Daddy," they cried, reaching out. "Take them to a relative," the officer instructed another patrolman, ignoring their pleas. Sarah, tears streaming down her face, kept repeating, "It's not true. They didn't do anything. I came here on my own." But her words seemed to fall on deaf ears, swallowed by the cold, hard reality of the situation. They saw a black family and a missing white girl. The rest was just details to be twisted. The walk out of our house, past Mrs. Henderson and other curious neighbors who had gathered, was the longest, most agonizing walk of my life. Their faces, usually friendly, were now filled with shock, suspicion, and pity. Whispers followed us like a shroud. The flashing lights of the patrol cars painted our humiliation for the entire neighborhood to see. The police station was a blur of fluorescent lights, cold metal chairs, and endless questions. They separated us, interrogated us for hours. They grilled me, trying to trip me up, trying to find inconsistencies in my story. "Why didn't you call the police, Nia? Why did you hide her? What were your intentions?" My answers, truthful and desperate, seemed to only deepen their suspicion. My loyalty to Sarah was twisted into complicity, my fear for her safety into a criminal conspiracy. Sarah, despite her parents' presence and their furious demands for answers, remained steadfast. She told them, over and over, that she ran away, that she sought refuge with me, that my family had no part in her running away. But her parents, blinded by their own anger and humiliation, refused to believe her. They saw us as opportunistic criminals preying on their vulnerable daughter, and the police, it seemed, were all too willing to agree. The legal battle that followed was a nightmare. My parents, who had never even had a parking ticket, were now facing serious charges. Bail was set impossibly high, draining our family's meager savings. We were assigned a public defender, a tired-looking woman who seemed overwhelmed by the sheer weight of the accusations and the implicit bias against us. Our reputation, built on decades of hard work and community involvement, was shattered overnight. The whispers turned into open stares. Friends avoided eye contact. Some neighbors who had once shared backyard barbecues with us now pulled their children inside when we walked by. My parents lost their jobs. Maya, who was applying for college scholarships, saw her application suddenly hit a wall. My brothers were bullied at school. We were pariahs, branded as kidnappers, as criminals, simply because of the color of our skin and the circumstances that had unfolded in our home. Sarah's parents, the Albrights, were relentless. They wanted us to pay. They wanted to make an example of us. Their lawyers painted a picture of a calculated abduction, a vulnerable girl lured into a dangerous situation. Sarah's testimony, though consistent, was undermined by their lawyers, who suggested she was confused, traumatized, or even brainwashed by our family. Her privilege, which should have protected her, was instead used to cast doubt on her own words, implying she couldn't possibly have made such a choice willingly. The media, of course, had a field day. "Missing heiress found in inner-city home," screamed one headline. "Family accused of kidnapping," layered another. The implicit narrative was clear. A wealthy white girl, a poor black family. The dots were connected, not by facts, but by prejudice. Weeks turned into months. The stress was unbearable. My parents, once so vibrant, seemed to age years in a matter of weeks. The light in their eyes dimmed. Our once lively home became a quiet, somber place, filled with the heavy silence of unspoken fears. I was consumed by guilt. It was all my fault. My loyalty, my secret, had destroyed everything. Eventually, after months of legal wrangling, after Sarah's unwavering testimony and the public defender's tireless work, the kidnapping charges were dropped. Not because they fully believed us, but because they couldn't prove intent. Sarah's consistent insistence that she came willingly, coupled with the lack of any ransom demands or evidence of force, made it impossible to sustain the most serious charges. Instead, they charged my parents with harboring a runaway minor, and me with obstruction of justice. Lesser charges, but still devastating. My parents received probation and a hefty fine that crippled us financially. My record as a minor was sealed, but the stain on my family remained. We never fully recovered. My parents struggled to find new jobs. The trust in our community was broken, perhaps irrevocably. We moved eventually to a different city, trying to escape the whispers, the stares, the judgment that followed us like a shadow. Sarah and I tried to stay in touch, but the distance, both physical and emotional, grew. Her parents, furious and humiliated, kept a tight leash on her. She called sometimes, her voice filled with remorse, with apologies. "I'm so sorry, Nia. I never knew it would be like this. I never meant for them to do this to your family." I knew she meant it. But her apologies couldn't undo the damage. Her privilege had allowed her to escape her gilded cage, but it was my family who had been trapped, caught in the unseen chains of systemic prejudice. Looking back, years later, I understand it all with a clarity that still stings. My actions, born of loyalty and a desperate desire to help a friend, were immediately criminalized because of our race. The missing white girl, the black family, it was a narrative too easy to fall into, too convenient for those who already held biases. Her parents' anger, the police's immediate suspicion, the community's swift judgment, it all stemmed from that deeply ingrained prejudice. We were innocent, but our innocence didn't matter. The system saw what it wanted to see. It saw a stereotype, not a family. It saw a crime, not an act of friendship. And in a terrifying blink, our lives, our reputation, our very sense of security were destroyed. It taught me a bitter lesson, that in a world still grappling with racial bias, even the purest intentions can be twisted into something ugly, and the consequences can be swift, brutal, and devastatingly unfair. The chains might be unseen, but their grip is undeniably real. And once they're on you, they're almost impossible to shake off. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If this story pulled you in, imagine what's coming next. Like, comment, and subscribe for more jaw-dropping stories that make you think twice about the world we live in. Turn on notifications so you never miss an upload.